Hi everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome to this week's episode of Tuesday Live at 5. I am super excited to share this set of cards with you today. We are focusing on the beautiful Lasting Lily stamp set. This is a celebration freebie. It is a level 2, which means you get it free with a $120 order here in Canada. And then I'm also going to be using the coordinating Lily Framelits. So these are part of the celebration coordination promotion that is on right now. These can be purchased. So you get your stamp set for free. You purchase your dies. The dies are $37 here in Canada. And they make a perfect complement to this awesome stamp set. So I'm going to show you how to make these 3 cards and we're going to get right to it. Oh, hi Debbie, how are you? Is it sunny and warm there? It's sunny here, not really warm, but it's nice. It's nice to see the sun. Okay, first one we're going to work on is this. Now this is part of I made this actually for the Simple Stamping Challenge that Stampin' Up! Has issued for this month. So the challenge this month is to use stamps, paper, and ink, and a bit of ribbon to create sympathy, wedding, or baby cards. So I have made the sympathy card and I'm going to show you just how I did it. So let's get to it. I'm going to start with a piece of Whisper White cardstock. Now this is cut to 5 1/4 by 4. And I'm going to bring in my stamps. Now I'm going to be using both of the Lily stamps and both of the stems and the leaf. Okay, so there are lots of different images in this set. I'm going to be stamping my lilies in Daffodil Delight ink. Okay, so my Daffodil Delight ink pad is actually pretty juicy. I just re-inked it. So what I'm going to do before I even attempt to stamp these is take a spoon and I'm going to massage the ink down into the pad a little bit. With these distinctive stamps, you want your pads to be a little bit on the dry side. Not dry, but a little on the dry side. You don't want a super juicy stamp. That is because if you put too much ink on this stamp, it's going to clog up all that fine texture and you're not going to get all the detail in your stamped image. So I'm just taking the back of a plastic spoon and I am just kind of massaging my ink pad, and you're going to see the ink pad lighten up as I do that. And that's just because I'm pressing that ink down into the pad. Okay? It's not hard to do. It doesn't damage the pad at all, as long as you use, the back side of the spoon. Don't use anything with a sharp edge. And it allows you to stamp with these distinctive stamps and not worry about how much ink is on your pad. Okay? All right, so we're going to start with the large lily. I'm going to bring back my cardstock here. I'm going to ink up my stamp. And when you look at your stamp after inking it, you shouldn't see little beads of ink on here, okay? If you can see. All right, so let's stamp our large lily first. And when you're stamping, oh, I forgot to put my mat underneath. Let's hope this works. Oh, it did. Ha, lucky me. When you're stamping with these photopolymer stamps, especially the distinctive stamps, it works best if you use one of our Stampin' Pierce mats underneath your cardstock, okay? Sunny, and oh, it's not too bad down there, Debbie. It's a whole lot warmer there than it is here. Okay, so I've stamped my large lily. Then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my 2 smaller lilies. So I'm inking up one, and it's going to go right about there. And the other one is going to go just a titch lower and tuck in close to the large one. Okay, so there are my 3 images. Or my 3 flowers rather. Now I'm going to come in with the Old Olive ink. Here it is. And I'm going to stamp the stem without the leaf on my large lily. And I'm actually going to tuck a piece of grid paper. So I've just trimmed some grid paper down to sit on my mat so that I don't get ink all over my mat when I stamp. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the plain stem. And then I'm going to add the 2 that have the smaller stems that have the leaf. And when you're stamping these, in order for your flower not to look like it's floating, you're going to have to overlap the base of your flower just a little bit with the stamp, and that'll give you, it'll look like your flowers are actually attached to your stems. Okay, just like that, super easy. Now, I want to show you a quick little easy way to add some extra detail and definition to these stamped images. So I'm just going to bring in the original again. And can you see how I've highlighted the veins on the lily? And I've added just some extra veining down at the bottom. So I'm going to show you how I did that. It's really, really simple. I am just going to take my pumpkin pie watercolor pencil. Okay, so our watercolor pencils are sold in a set. And all I'm doing is just taking and highlighting those veins ever so gently with my pencil. Now these pencils work best if they're a little bit dull, okay? You don't want them super sharp. You actually get a better transfer of color if they're a little bit dull, okay? The other thing I'm going to do is just kind of come along the edge here and just highlight that edge. I'm just going to add a little bit more definition, as well as here, just above the fold in the lily. And then I'm also going to highlight this little bit here as it comes down. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here just underneath and add a little bit more veining, and then same thing under here. Okay, and that just adds a bit of definition to the stamped image. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the smaller ones. And I'm going to come around here and just highlight this one, this edge. And again, this edge that comes around here. And then add some extra veins down here. Okay, and then same thing over here. Now this one, you can tell I had a little bit too much ink on my stamp. Can you see how it doesn't have quite the definition as the other one? But the cool thing about this is I can use my pencil to add that extra definition without having to worry about how crisp and clean my image is. So I'm going to add some extra veins here and just a little bit here. Okay, really simple, easy way to add some extra definition. Okay, I'm getting an update. There we go. Okay. I love this stamp set too, Heather. Thanks for joining me today. Now, the other thing I want to show you is how to fix a little oop. So you see how my stem isn't quite attached to my flower here? So I'm going to bring in my Old Olive watercolor pencil, and I'm just going to fill in some of that space there, and then suddenly I'm no longer floating. Really quick, easy way. Watercolor pencils are an awesome way to fix little oopses. All right, next I'm going to bring in the sentiment. So this is one of the sentiments in the Lasting Lily stamp set. And I've got my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment directly onto my panel. And it's going to go right about there. Okay. And then I'm going to add some ribbon. Now, I'm going to show you a little ribbon saving trick. Okay, so I'll show you the original again. What I did, what it looks like, is that I wrapped the ribbon around the panel and tied it, right? So you would think that there's a whole bunch of ribbon on the back side of this panel that you can't see. However, there is not. I'm going to show you a little trick. So here I have a refill bottle of Stampin' Mist. You can use whatever bottle you have handy. This just happens to be a good size. And I'm going to wrap my ribbon around the bottle. So I'm tying a knot, okay? And then I'm going to tie a bow. So I'm making my loop. In my right hand, I'm bringing the left hand tail around, keeping everything flat as I do so. This is the key to getting a nice square knot on your bow. And then I'm going to bring my loop through, just like that. Okay. Now, it doesn't look really pretty right now. I'm going to slide it off the bottle. And this is where, you've heard me say this before, where you have to tease the bow out of your ribbon. Okay, so I'm going to pull this tight, and I'm going to adjust my loops. Just like that. Okay, and I just keep pulling and tugging and adjusting the size of my loops until I'm happy with them. Okay, now I'm going to cut my bow off of my spool here. I'll just trim it like that, get the spool out of the way. And then I'll trim this end as well. It's a pretty long tail. Okay, so now I have this loop, right? Now, obviously this is not big enough to fit around my panel, but it doesn't need to. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So I want my bow to kind of be centered over that large lily. Do you see that? Okay. So I am actually going to trim this loop so that I have these pieces on either side of the bow to go around the card. Okay, so I'm going to trim it right about here. Whoopsie. And then when I do so, I can extend my loops, and you can see how that now is going to be able to wrap around the back side of the card. So now I'm going to take a glue dot. I'm going to press the knot of my bow into the glue dot, and I'm going to stick my bow on first. Okay, that's where I want it. Just that a bit after. And then I'm going to take and put a glue dot on the end of each tail. One there, and the other one here. Oh, that was close. There we go. We'll stretch that a bit. And there I have my ribbon. I didn't have to waste any going around the back side of the panel, but I have the look of a tied bow. Isn't that cool? It's a quick little ribbon saving tip for you. All right, so let's put this onto our mat. I have a Daffodil Delight mat. This is cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So we're going to put a little bit of fast fuse on the back of that. And we'll center it on our mat. And this gives you about a 1/16 of an inch border all the way around. Okay, and then I have my basic black card base. This is cut to 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and it is scored in the middle at 4 1/4. Oh, hi! Hello from New Jersey. Well, hello. I can't read. I'm too far. I'm too close to the camera, and I don't have my glasses on. I can't read names. I can barely read the comments. I'm sorry. I can't read comments today. So I'm going to fold my card base in half. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that right onto my black card base. So we're going to just throw a bit of fast fuse on there. And whoop, there's a little bit of silver something. I don't know where that came from. And we'll pop that onto the front of our card. And having the black border just really makes this card pop, I think. Okay, isn't that a pretty simple Sympathy card? Okay, gotta love simple stamping. Now on the inside of my original, I stamped another lily and another sentiment that just says our thoughts are with you. I'm not gonna take the time to do that today, but that's just one idea for what you could do on the inside of your card. Okay, all right, easy peasy and done like dinner. Let's move on to card number 2. The next one I'm gonna show you is one that I featured. Where did I put it? Where did I put my, oh, there. Oh. There's my sample. It's one that I featured yesterday. I posted about it yesterday, and it features some two-tone stamping. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's really easy, but it creates some additional interest on your calla lily. Okay, all right, let's get to it. Pull in my kit and my basket of goodies here. All right. So my background on this one is a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of Whisper White cardstock that I have embossed using the Basket Weave embossing folder. Okay, I love this one. It reminds me of spring and Easter, and let me tell you, I am so ready for spring right now. So excuse me, that's what I use for the background. Here I have a piece of Pear Pizzazz cardstock. It is cut to 4 inches by 2 inches, and it is going to provide my band that kind of goes across the front of my card like this. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that on. And I put this on about an inch up from the bottom. And the nice thing about this basket weave pattern is it's regular and square, and you can use it to get your pieces straight. It makes it easy. Okay. All right. Next, I have some pieces that I die cut using the Stitched Rectangles framelits. Okay. So I used 2 framelits at the same time. I just nested the one inside the other. These are the 3rd and 4th largest rectangles in that die set. And I just ran them through at the same time to get the frame. Okay, and then the insert. So I'm putting it together right now because we're going to stamp, and then we're going to play around with it a little bit once we get our stamping done. So I just need to quickly clean this stamp, and I need to quickly clean my small one just to make sure we're not cross-contaminating ink pads. All right, so for this one, I am going to use 2 different shades of oranges. So I'm starting with Grapefruit Grove. And I just need to grab my Mango Melody. That's another kit for the next card. Okay, so I'm first going to ink up my large flower using the Grapefruit Grove. Now this ink pad is already pretty dry. Can you see how light it is there in the middle? So this is actually kind of perfect for this style of stamp, this distinctive stamp. So I've inked up my large flower with the grapefruit. Then I'm going to grab my Mango Melody and my sponge dauber. Okay, so I'm going to ink up my dauber, and I'm going to apply ink to my stamp using the dauber. So I'm only going to try to ink around the edges of my stamp, and a little bit. I kind of want this part to be darker, the bottom part. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp. And the cool thing about this technique is you never really know what you're going to get until, oh, and I forgot to use my mat again. Let's hope this works. Oh, it did. Woohoo! Okay, and you can see how you have the lighter orange in the middle and then the darker orange around the edges. Okay. All right. Okay, next one. I'm going to use the smaller image, the smaller flower image. Okay, same thing. I'm going to ink up my grapefruit net first. And then I'm going to take my dauber and the mango. And I'm going to do the bottom and just around the edges. Don't worry if you get a little bit of ink on your block. That's okay. It won't transfer as long as you don't rock your block. Okay, so I'm going to stamp my smaller flower, or my smaller blossom, I guess. Just like that. Okay, so there are my two flowers. I'm going to get these ink pads out of the way because we're not going to need them again. Okay, now I'm going to bring in my Pear Pizzazz ink, and I'm going to stamp my stem. So again, this is one that I just re-inked, so I'm going to just massage the ink pad a little bit. So I'm going to take the back of my spoon and just give that a little massage, and you'll see how the middle of the ink pad where I'm massaging it is lightening up. Okay, that's what I want to happen so that I get, I don't have too juicy a pad. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and stamp the stem for the large flower and the stem for the smaller flower. And again, I'm overlapping at the base just to make sure that I get I don't have floating stems, or floating flowers rather. And then I've got the leaf here. I'm going to stamp the leaf as well. Okay, really, really easy. But using the dauber and using complementary colors is a really cool way to get some interesting shading on your lilies. Okay, all right, now that we have stamped that, we can go ahead and glue our center panel down. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this right flat onto the front of my background piece. So just, and again, I'm going to use my grid of my lattice to get this straight. Right about there looks good. Okay. Now I'm going to take and add my twine. Okay, I'll just show you on the original again. You'll see that I've added the twine underneath the frame. Okay, so I'm going to do that first. So I've just got some linen thread here, and to do this I'm going to just put a glue dot on the back of my panel. So there it is there. I'm going to press my thread into the, oh, that's a little bit high. We're going to put my glue dot lower so I don't go over top of my flowers. There we go. So we're just going to wrap it once and twice, and we can adjust it as we go, and 3 times. Okay. And now that it's wrapped, I'm going to trim it off of my spool, and then I'm going to add another glue dot to hold that in place. Okay, so we're going to get this out of the way. Okay, and then I can arrange my my twine, and what is going to happen, I want it to go so that when I put my oval on, I'm going to stamp my sentiment here. I kind of want it to gather behind that. So I'm going to actually pull my twine together, and I'm going to put a little glue dot sort of where I want it to gather once I put my oval on. So I'm just going to do that. This is going to be hidden, but that's just going to hold that in place where I want it. Okay. All right, now I can go ahead and glue this onto my card base. So here I have a 4 1/4 by 11 inch thick Whisper White card base. It's scored in the middle at 5 1/2, and I'm going to fold it along the score line. And then add a bit of fast fuse. And stick it down. Now, again, I often get asked why I layer white on white. And my reasoning for that is when I open my card, I like the inside of my card to be clean. I don't like to see the embossed image. So if I'm going to emboss my card front, I always put a layer so that the embossing shows on the front, but on the inside it looks clean. Okay, but you could totally do this by just embossing your card base. It is totally fine. It's just a personal preference of mine. Okay, all right, now we're ready to put our frame on. Okay, and my frame is going to get popped up. So to do this, I'm actually going to take the edges. This is a well-used sheet of dimensionals, and I'm going to trim the edges of the frame from my dimensionals. Okay, I need a very, very narrow piece to go on that frame. In fact, these guys have to get trimmed a little closer. Here we go. Okay, so I'm actually going to cut this in half because I don't need it to go the full length of the frame. So I'm going to peel my backing off and stick that down, and then another piece up here. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other end of my sheet. So this is why we never throw out our dimensional frames, right? There's perfectly good adhesive there. We don't want to waste it. So we'll get rid of this one. And we'll put this guy here. And we'll get this guy. And put him down here. And then we need one more little bit. And so here I'm just going to trim off those little points on this piece. And we're going to put a little bit right on here. Okay, so the trick is to center that so that when you put it down, you don't see your dimensionals peeking out. Okay? All right, so we're going to get rid of all the backings on here. Come on. There we go. Oh, that guy's moved. He's going to peek. We got to fix that. We don't want to see him. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to center this over my stamped panel, and it's going to line up. I just want to be looking at the corners, and I want to be looking at my stamped image, and I just want to make sure that I get that on nice and straight so that it perfectly aligns with my stamped image. Okay. Now that's bumped over my dimension or my twine a little bit. Okay, just like that. Okay, last step on this one is to stamp our sentiment. So I have an oval that I've die cut using the Layering Ovals Framelits, and I'm going to use some gray granite ink to stamp it. This sentiment says, "Thank you for your kindness, or for your endless love and support." Man, I should wear my glasses when I do these videos. All right, so I'm just going to center that on the oval. Just like that. And now when I put it on my card, I want to make sure that I'm going to put dimensionals under this part that's going to overlap here, but I'm going to put a glue dot here, because if I put dimensional on this end, then this end's going to bump up higher, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to put one dimensional here, and I'm going to put a glue dot on the other end. Okay, so dimensional, glue dot, and then that is going to go on right, preferably straight, right about there. Okay, done and done. Easy, quick, and a little bit extra with the sponge color. I'm going to quickly show you what I did on the inside of my sample. Here I stamped another sentiment from the Lasting Lily set, and then I used this little smudge image, and we're actually going to use that image on the next card in a really cool way. But it's a great way to just add a little emphasis to your stamped sentiment. Okay, so there is card number 2, done and done. We are rolling along. Just gonna clean up my mess here a little bit, get all my dimensional backings out of the way, and then we're gonna move on to number 3. Make sure I've got all the stamps and inks that I need. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna show you the card. I'm just getting all my bits and bobs out here. This next one we're going to do is another Sympathy card, and I used this smudgy stamp to create this background. Okay, I'm going to show you how I did that. It's actually kind of fun, and this is actually my favorite stamp in the set. I like the lilies and all, but I really, really love that smudgy look. So I'm going to show you how I did that. Just grab my kit here. So I have just a scrap of Whisper White. It is 4 inches wide, and on my sample, I cut these strips to 5/8 of an inch, okay? So you need to have 4 times, so 28ths, which is like what? I don't even know. I can't do that math that fast, but it needs to be wide enough that you can cut it into 5/8 strips, okay? If you want to do a lot of these, you could just work on a 4 by 5.5 inch panel and do the whole thing and then cut it into strips afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I did this background. I'm quite excited about this. So my color palette, I'll just show you all of the ink colors that I'm using on this one. Here we go. So I've got So Saffron, Mango Melody, Pumpkin Pie, and Cajun Craze. Okay, so those are all shades of oranges and yellows. Okay, and then the green that I used is Mossy Meadow, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to start with my So Saffron, and I'm going to ink up my little smudge stamp here. And I'm going to stamp across the top of my little scrap here a few times. Okay, just like that. That's all there is to it. Easy, right? Okay, next up, I'm going to bring in some Mango Melody. And the nice thing about this, because I'm going from light to dark, I don't have to clean my stamp in between each color. I'm going to overlap a little bit with the mango. And I'm just going to come across here. Okay, there's the mango. Next, I'm going to come in with my pumpkin pie. Ooh, this is really juicy. Ha! I just re-inked this one too. I'm actually going to massage this one a little bit as well, because I'm not going to get a great image if I don't. There we go. I'm going to stamp that off and try again. Okay, this will be better. Okay, much better. So I'm adding my pumpkin. Okay, so I'm just kind of stamping randomly, just filling in that white space. And then I'm going to come in finally with the Cajun Craze. And ink it up. And then I'm going to fill in the rest of the white. Okay, now if I were working on a matte, I'd be getting better quality images, but that's okay. For this look, it doesn't really matter. Okay, that's it. Isn't that a cool background? So cool. It looks almost like a sunset or sunrise. And then, as I said, all I did is I took and cut this panel into 5/8 inch strips. Okay, I'm not going to take the time to do that. I've got some that are pre-cut, but I wanted to show you how I did that background. So here are my little strips, okay, all cut and done already. And I've got a piece of basic black cardstock that is cut to 4 by 5.25 inches, and I've embossed it using the Pinewood Planks embossing folder, okay? So what I'm gonna do is take my little strips and lay them out. And ideally, you kind of want to get them, if you can, so that they're in the order in which they were cut. I think this goes like this, yes. Oh, it might go like this. Yes, it does. Okay, so I'm going to lay my strips on here. And you really want to get these laid out exactly where you want them before you start gluing. Okay, I've got about an 1/8 of an inch. No, yeah, an 1/8 of an inch in between each strip. I didn't actually measure this. I just kind of eyeballed it. But I did want to put them on so that I have an equal border, top and sides. Okay, so this is about the same border. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay, and straight is obviously better than not straight. So now when I'm gluing stuff like this and I want to be able to adjust and have wiggle time, I like to use my Tombow. So I'm just going to put a little bit of Tombow on the back of one of the strips. And then I'm going to stick that down. And then I can wiggle and adjust to make sure it's straight in the way I want it. Oh, I just made it not straight. Let's fix that. There we go. Okay, so that's my reference point. Now I can space these other guys out. And then I'm going to actually do my right one, and then I'll do the two in the middle. That's just so that I can get my spacing right. So that's going to go on right about there. That's pretty straight. Okay, and then I can do my two middle ones. So there's one. It's a little bit high. Let's bump that down just a titch. There we go. And then the last one. It's going to go right in between those two. And preferably the same height. Whoop. There we go. Okay. Easy, quick, but sort of a different looking background. Okay. All right. Now I have already gone ahead and stamped and die cut a lily. So here, for these I use the Lasting Lily Framelits, or sorry, the Lily Framelits they're called. Lasting Lily is a stamp set. Lily Framelits is the name of the dies. So for this one, I'm going to show you how I stamp it. I just have a scrap of, or not scrap, a piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to bring in my stamp. And for this one, I used Mango Melody and Pumpkin Pie. So two of the colors that we used in the background. Okay. So this time I'm going to ink my stamp first with Mango Melody. Okay. And then I'm going to sponge on Pumpkin Pie. Okay. And that's going to give me the darker border and highlight some of the bottom, the shadow areas. So I'm just going to come around there. And you really can't see this ink going on, right? So you kind of have to trust that it's there. It is. You just don't know it until you stamp it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and stamp. There you go. Okay. So you see how the edges are a little bit darker and it just adds some definition. Okay, so that was Mango Melody and Pumpkin Pie that I used there. Okay, so I've already die cut this, as I mentioned, and I have also stamped the stem and the leaf, and that I did in Mossy Meadow. Okay, I use Mossy Meadow ink for that. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble. Now, you can assemble these dies a couple of ways. So you can do it this way. I don't mind that look, but I don't love it because I don't like the white. I actually would prefer that was green. So I actually prefer to kind of put my stems sort of in behind my lily. Both work, whatever your preference is, but I'm going to put mine in behind. So I'm just going to put a glue dot on the end of the stem and then attach my lily right about there. Okay. And then I'm going to take my leaf. My leaf is going to go overlapping the stem, and I'm going to put a glue dot just behind the leaf and lay it over the stem and just kind of press it into place. Okay. All right, now to put this on the card, I'm going to go ahead and pop this up with some dimensionals. So we're gonna grab some dimensionals here. Okay, and where did I put my minis? Where are you, minis? There they are. We'll put a mini down here and a mini behind the leaf there. So that's going to get stuck down on our card. The stems are going to extend off the bottom, and that's okay. We're going to trim them in a minute, and you can put this as high as you'd like. I kind of did it, I don't know, 2/3 of the way up my background. Okay. And then to trim the stems off, I'm just going to flip my cardstock over and use the edge of the black as a guide and just snip off the rest of the stems like that. Okay. Now I'm ready to go ahead and glue this onto my card base. I have a thick Whisper White card base that is 4 1/4 by 11 and scored in the middle at 5 1/2. I'm going to fold it in half and crisp up my folds. And then this is going to go on with a bit of Fast Fuse or whatever your preferred adhesive is. just like that. Okay, I kept a really narrow white border around there. And then the last thing to do is our sentiment. So here I've die cut a label, and this is actually die cut with the label that is in the Lily Framelit. So there are two sizes of label. This is the larger one, okay? But the smaller one fits some of the sentiments in the set, and it actually layers quite nicely over top of the larger one if you wanted to mat it, okay? So I cut this ahead of time using the Big Shot, and I'm gonna grab my Memento black ink and my With Sympathy stamp, and I'm just going to stamp that on my label. That is hard to do when you're looking at it from the side, I gotta say. All right, now I used a little bit of copper thread on this just to highlight my sentiment, and a lot of people kind of have a love-hate relationship with this stuff. So I'm going to show you a couple of tricks. This is how I use it, and it's quite manageable, and I find I don't mind this stuff. So I'm going to take and put some fast fuse, you could use snail as well, on the back of my label. Okay, I'm putting quite a bit. I want to make sure it's mostly covered. And then I have my spool of thread. And I'm going to take and grab the tail end between my fingers, and I'm going to wrap the thread, I don't know, 5 or 6 times around my fingers. Okay, and then trim it off the spool. So now I have these loops on my fingers. I'm going to slide the loops off and kind of holding them together. Okay, so you see my loops there? And then I'm going to take and I'm going to put them down onto my label. Okay, once they're stuck down, this stuff is easier to manage. It doesn't fly everywhere. So now I can take and tuck in the ends of my thread so I don't see those. Okay, and then I have loops, messy loops, but they're not sort of flying everywhere, and it's easy to manage. Okay, that's going to go onto my card with a couple of dimensionals again, maybe 3. There we go. Get rid of the backings, and then we'll pop this on right about, preferably straight. There. Okay, and you can just kind of arrange your loops. Done and done. Now on the inside of this one, I did similar to what I did on the last one. I stamped one of the little smudges. I used, I think, Mango Melody for that, and then stamped the sentiment over top. Okay. All right, that is it. That was quick and easy. This is a great stamp set with lots of possibilities and simple possibilities. So I'll just bring in all 3 projects again. 1, 2, 3. There they are. And I really hope you use this stamp set. It is a great one. Lots of options, and it's always hard to make sympathy cards, right? Nobody likes to make sympathy cards because, well, to send them, someone has lost someone. But having a set like this where you can pull out and whip up a sympathy card quickly and easily is a really great thing to have on hand. Okay. All right. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. I hope you have a great day. Have a great rest of the week, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.